Buongiorno a tutti. Thanks for joining me again in my little kitchen here in Lecce in the south of Italy. My name is Francesco and today I'm going to prepare a risotto, and I want to show you that you can make risotti using any ingredient, and people tend to stick to the classics, which is fine, but you really can improvise and make a great meal from seemingly nothing. So what I'm going to do today is make a risotto using carrot and zucchini. I'm going to add some ginger to the carrot, which I'm going to boil in some chicken broth, and then I'm going to puree that and use that to enrich the risotto. I'm going to use an arborio rice and start it in the traditional way with some butter and white wine to deglaze. Then of course I'm going to cook it through, adding the broth little by little, and I'm going to add the diced zucchini at the end so it doesn't cook for too long and still give some nice fresh flavour and good texture. Plenty of Parmesan cheese. What more could you want? It's going to be a lovely, easy meal, and I hope you enjoy the recipe. If you do, please do give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment. Do subscribe to my channel, I'd really appreciate it. And then come back and follow me for more. Let's cook. For today's recipe you are going to need arborio rice, chicken broth, I'm going to use a stock cube, ginger, zucchini, carrot, shallot, butter, Parmesan cheese and white wine. For 2 good portions of risotto you are going to need a small zucchini, which you need to top and tail and cut into a fine dice. You are also going to need 2 or 3 slices of ginger. Remove the peel and you can leave this whole. It's just going to brew in the broth together with the carrot. We're also going to need to peel and finely chop a shallot. If you don't have shallot, half of a medium-sized onion will also do just fine. For 2 portions of risotto, I used 2 small carrots. These simply need to be peeled and then cut in half. You want to leave the pieces nice and big in the broth so that you can easily avoid them whilst you're adding the broth to the risotto. For the broth, I used just a half of a chicken bouillon, the carrot and the ginger. Bring this up to the boil and you're ready to go. After the carrots have been simmering for 10 minutes, you can add a knob of butter to your frying pan, the finely chopped shallots, and begin working on the risotto itself. Let the shallot fry gently on a moderate flame until it becomes translucent. You don't want it to get brown. After 2 or 3 minutes, you can add the rice and begin toasting it. The rice needs to toast gently for 3 or 4 minutes. Don't rush this procedure, this is very important in order to seal the grains. After 3 or 4 minutes, deglaze with a good splash of white wine. Make sure to keep stirring until the wine evaporates away and loses all of its alcohol content. You just want the flavour to perfume the rice. As soon as the wine has evaporated away, you can begin adding the broth and cooking the risotto. Keep adding the broth just 1 ladle at a time and stirring it in well until it becomes absorbed or evaporates away, and add as necessary. Season with plenty of freshly ground black pepper and a good pinch of salt. You don't have to be stirring like crazy the whole time, but don't leave the rice unattended. Every 20 or 30 seconds, a quick stir is going to be just fine. After about 10 minutes, check on your carrots and see if they're soft enough to pierce them with a fork. If they are, you're ready to blend them together with the ginger and enrich the broth for the rest of the cooking time. Now it's time to finally start bringing a little bit of colour into that pale rice. It's soon going to look a lot more appetizing. Keep adding the broth and stirring it in, and at this point we can also add the chopped zucchini. We've basically just got 5 or 6 more minutes of cooking time to go. This is why it's also important to have chopped that zucchini nice and fine. Of course, no risotto video would be complete without the obligatory slow motion shots. As you can see, it's also slowly beginning to become more creamy and more like a real risotto. Keep adding the broth and stirring it in, and when you get to the point that when you push your spoon through the rice and it flows back slowly, like this is what we call al onda, which means to the wave. We are ready to turn off the heat and mantecare. This is the phase where we add the butter and the grated Parmesan cheese, stir vigorously, and turn that simple rice into a real creamy risotto. At this point, it's important to stir vigorously, as this not only helps the butter and the cheese to melt, but it helps the rice to release its starch, and that's what's going to turn it really nice and creamy like this. Now we're ready to serve. Add a generous serving, and then, as we do in the restaurants, take your plate, tap it on the bottom, and let the rice slowly seep out towards the edges of the plate and level out all by itself. Your rice needs to be smooth and creamy. Whenever you see those mountains of stacked up risotto that have been turned out on a plate, you know that's not made by an Italian. Your risotto needs to be creamy and soft like this. Buon appetito!